Hello, welcome to the Talking City podcast. We're back again from the Manchester Evening News, talking all things Manchester City. My name is Joe Bray. Joining me for the first time in 2024 is Simon Bajkowski. Si, how's it going? Happy New Year.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's weird being back on remote, I have to say. It's sort of, I don't think either of our Wi-Fi's are the best, but we crack on anyway. Yes, how are you?
Not too bad, yeah. Just, I'm quite glad that we've had a bit of a break between the fixtures, and it felt like it was not even 3 days, every two, or like there was something to do every day over Christmas and leading up to it. But now we've got a nice week or so between games where we can sit back and we can also discuss transfers, because we are, of course, in the January transfer window, and we've got plenty to discuss. City don't often do business or major business in January, but we're expecting maybe a few more exits than arrivals, let's say. So let's get stuck into some transfer business. The main question I think people will be asking about City is not whether Kalvin Phillips will leave, but when he will leave and where he will go. So it seems like a matter of time, doesn't it? And it feels like every nail is in the coffin. We were discussing on the podcast when we did it on Wednesday that he might not even play against Huddersfield because you don't want to injure him or cup tie him. And that's sort of like the ultimate humiliation, really, isn't it? And just compounds the situation he finds himself in.
Yeah, although I suppose Juventus won't have to worry about the FA Cup. It's dragged on for ages, Phillips, and it's been clear for ages that he wasn't going to get into the team. And Pep's made that probably more clear than he's made clear any other kind of signing or decision that he's made, when he said he just can't visualise him in his team. I've sort of maintained for a while that Phillips should have a move lined up for the 1st of January or on the 5th, and he's still here, which perhaps reflects the reality that although he is a very good player and will probably get a very good move, it's quite difficult to sort of line something up and get something over the line quickly. But every day that he doesn't move is probably a day where he's not playing football. So it's in his interest to move, but equally City aren't a charity. It probably doesn't matter to them whether he goes or not. As Pep has said and others have said, he's kind of exemplary in the dressing room. Everyone loves him and he's quite happy for him to be around. So if he wants to move, which we think he does, then it's kind of on him, and to get a club to sort of meet City's terms, which will not be kind of take this player for free.
You would imagine that there is a club out there, because we see how he plays for England. If he's got a good defensive midfielder next to him, and that is a system that a team plays, he can be very good. And we saw it at Leeds, we've seen it for England. Guardiola said he's better when there's chaos, which was another damning statement for his City career, because Guardiola obviously does not like chaos. He prefers the control. But yeah, you would think that there's someone in the Premier League maybe chasing a European spot. Juventus seems like it could be an option where he just takes himself out of the Premier League and reinvents himself almost. It's not the end of his career, this 18 months at City, is it? He's still got the capability of playing regularly, making that England squad and sort of resurrecting what's happened at City.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly with Southgate, he's got so much credit in the bank that you would think that if he gets any kind of half-decent moves and plays half-decently, then he'll be in the squad for the Euros. But like I say, the longer it goes on, and Juventus are interested. But I guess that is more Juventus feels like, I don't know, maybe more of a better deal in the long run, but it is more of a risk moving to another league. And he's got a young family, he's just had a baby, I think, in the last week or so that maybe has to be factored into it as well. There is Premier League interest. I mean, Newcastle have taken a look for a while. A loan for Newcastle, you would think, would make sense, while they've got a very expensive midfielder that they signed unavailable for betting issues. So But again, Newcastle will not kind of, will want to negotiate a deal if they are to do a loan. But it just kind of, like you say, it does seem a case of when he will leave rather than whether. But clubs are a bit jumpy at the minute about, financial fair play and everything like that. I think the Juventus sporting director's already been on saying, they've not really they can't really see things happening in the current their situation. So there's, the brinksmanship has begun, and City will kind of play their part in it. So the emphasis is on Phillips and his camp, really, to get a move that works for him. But like you say, that it shouldn't be too difficult to get one, because he is still a very good player, and he has kind of lots that he can offer.
I wonder if the longer term is playing a factor as well. So it might not just be a 6-month loan; it might be a loan with an option to buy. And do teams want to commit to that, or do they want to wait and see what happens? Does he get in the squad? And if it is Newcastle, then another factor is that City play Newcastle next week, and what goes on there, and do we want to wait? As you mentioned, he's just had a new kid, so maybe that's why he hasn't had a transfer lined up on the 1st of January, which is entirely understandable. So I think it's going to be the one that sort of is the headline of City's transfer window, isn't it? It would be hard to see him staying.
Yeah, and there's not going to be kind of a more senior arrival. I mean, I think from what I've been off for a few days, but my understanding is that kind of City would be open to a sale this month if the right offer came in. But it's what would that reasonable offer look like? Because I can't see City wanting to accept much less than what they paid for him. So again, whether any club really wants to nail their colours to the mast and say, yeah, we're paying 40 million for Phillips, and then, like you say, if not a sale, then loan with an obligation to buy would be next best for City, and then loan with an option to buy is probably the most realistic option. However, as I've said, I think City will be happy for him to do what he wants, but they will also be happy if he stays, because he's still getting in the squad every week and taking up a place on the bench, and has got a few minutes, even if not loads. So although he's not really essential to the squad in any way, he's still kind of he still has value at City.
He's got that very important role of laying off the shots in the warm-up for the starting 11 to have a go on goal, which is can't be underestimated as well. He's a 28-year-old England international as well. I know he's not had the best 18 months, but if we are talking transfer fees, then 40 million for that sort of profile and 18 months working under Guardiola seems fair, even if he's not been playing that much under Pep.
Yeah, I would think so, but it's just whether, any club wants to pay that money in January. I think most clubs would prefer not to do January business, and if it might have been a fair price for Newcastle, say, if they hadn't whacked out even more on a central midfielder that can only train for them for most of the year. So it's every club has got to be careful with the financial regulations, and there's a bit of jitters about, I would say, about sticking to the rules, and no one's quite sure what's going on and what who will be picked up and how, and what the punishments will be and how strong the punishments will be. So whether you get anyone to commit to a sale, I don't know. But even if not, there should still be enough interest to warrant a loan. And as much as Phillips has the right to choose which of those clubs he wants to go to, at the same time, you think the sooner you get out, the better for you. Even if it's not an amazing loan, I don't think he needs that. I just think he kind of needs to show willing and do reasonable enough to bank that place for the Euros, because he has, got so much kind of credit from Southgate.
And Southgate values playing regularly, doesn't he? It's not necessarily where you play. His first choice goalkeeper is at Everton, who've been fighting relegation for the last 3 seasons. So I think, it is a case of just getting out there. That will be one to watch throughout January. Phillips will hope it's towards the beginning of January, but it feels like it might be one that could drag on if other things get in the way. Are we looking at any other exits? We've seen that Zach Steffen has left permanently. We sort of forgot he was on the books. He was injured over the summer, so couldn't get another loan move, said he wasn't going to come back, and now he's returned to the MLS, which isn't much of a surprise, especially given that Stefan Ortega has shown how he can sort of be a very good second goalkeeper. Is there anyone else? Sergio Gomez, maybe?
Yeah. Gomez has kind of been linked a few times with he's kind of come in as a sort of, well, he was meant to go on loan in his first season and then ended up staying, but he's almost like the new Zinchenko, where City can say, oh, you can leave if you want, and he says, no, I'll stay. I'll stay. He's another that's not played very much and has, good representation, who can get him a move somewhere. He's similar to Phillips for City, that they would, happily see him stay, but also if he wants to get more regular minutes, he could go. So again, it's kind of on him. He had a very good summer at the under-21 Euros, and then that hasn't really led to anything more. He's not really getting more minutes than he did last season, and he still kind of seems he's not really taking his opportunities when they come to say, I should be kind of pushing for more regular minutes. So there's the possibility that he could go, but I don't think that he would be really missed too much by the fans if he did go, because he's just not made that impact on the first team.
It's tricky. He was brought in as a left back who'd been converted from a winger under Vincent Kompany. Never really looked too good at left back. I remember at Southampton almost a year ago, he was awful for 45 minutes, and when he was subbed, the away end cheered his sort of substitution because he was that bad. He didn't really get another look in at left back, and then, as you say, he's gone away with the Spain under-21s, got the golden boot by playing as a right winger, and he's now in between those two positions. Pep likes Ake and Gvardiol at left back because they're more secure and offer more to the sort of fluid formation that they've got going in defence. Gomez can't do that. He must be about 6th or 7th choice on the wings when you factor in all those options of who can play out wide. You just can't see where he fits in that team, and he will probably play against Huddersfield on Sunday. But when else is he gonna get any minutes?
Yeah, and I think there's a danger of kind of, ruling out anyone who's not first team regular starter quality kind of thing, and so they don't need them, because you do need those squad players who come in for the odd game. I think some of the sort of, it feels like kind of City's summer signings, Nunes is a lot more raw, but they've paid a lot more money for him from Wolves than they did for Kovacic. Like, Kovacic started really well, but then sort of tailed off a bit, but he was only kind of 25 million from Chelsea, and it's not really like Kovacic was the Gundogan replacement, so we shouldn't see him as the Gundogan replacement. And if he can get a load of regular starts in the team, then great, but also, if he is just a squad player who comes in for certain games and comes off the bench, then that is absolutely fine as well. And if, someone came in for Kovacic, for example, he would need to be replaced. So Gomez, he's not at that Kovacic level by any stretch of the imagination, but, if he does stick around, he will still get minutes, and you still never know who you're going to get in the FA Cup draws and when that's going to be. I think the timing of the Huddersfield game means that it's probably going to be a strong team, but away from that, and as City go for more and more trophies and the games start coming thick and fast, then he is still probably going to get minutes and be around a team who's going to win a lot.
I think he's useful to bring off the bench if you're winning 2 or 3-0, and you can rest one of your other players and just try him out in a couple of different positions. And he is fairly reliable when he comes on. He doesn't make, aside from that Southampton game, he doesn't make too many mistakes. So I think he is someone that if he doesn't leave, he's got that place in the squad, and he feels like he's quite happy to play that role and sort of be a cover player, if you like. And I don't think he's the worst signing City have made, as you say, by any stretch. But if he did move and he did want to go and get regular football and maybe even lock down a position, whether it's left back or on the wing, wherever he plays, it could maybe benefit him going forward in his career, because he won't want to play that role as sort of City's backup for the rest of his career, will he? But maybe this season stay at City and look for a move in the summer. It's an interesting one. I saw City said happy birthday to Angelino the other day, and he feels like he's a step up on Angelino when you compare him to sort of this revolving door of left backs that have come in. Would you say he's sort of, where does he rank on those sort of substitute left backs that City have had?
Yeah, he's similar in that he's kind of like a left back that was bought not quite for the first team, but Angelino probably played more first team games or bigger first team games. But equally, he was gone within 6 months of signing again. So it was kind of a lot shorter. Like you say, he needs to think about his career, but he is still young enough that it wouldn't necessarily do him any harm to stay for another 6 months at City. But yeah, he would, if he wanted to move, I don't think anyone would begrudge him the move, because he would be moving to kind of better himself as a footballer.
I think I was looking at more so Kalvin Phillips' minutes, and I think it's only in the 300 mark this season. I think it was Phillips has played more minutes but less games than Gomez. So Gomez has not even reached 300 minutes, but he's played 10 times. So it's sort of those last 2 or 3 minutes where you can't really make an impact in a game, or you play in the sort of the dead rubbers, and it must be hard to make an impact. So I think in the long term it will be interesting to see what happens with Gomez and that sort of profile of player. We're saying Phillips has to move to get game time, and maybe Gomez should stay. So it's looking at everyone's situation, isn't it? We'll keep an eye on all of those and any other moves that happen. In terms of incoming Sai, can we assume that Claudio Echeverri is coming in from River Plate?
Yeah, and you can also assume that you'll hear very little of him for the next year or so. It's 2 years since City signed Alvarez, and he's come in and done very well. Won an incredible haul of trophies and established himself in the side while injuries, but he was still 6 months before City brought him to Manchester. There was still he was still not kind of nailed on at the end of that season that they would bring him to Manchester, and he is significantly older than Echeverri. Sort of the comparisons are easy to make, 'cause it's sort of a young Argentine kid again from the same club. But I think Alvarez was kind of already an established Argentina international by the time he came to City, whereas, and I think he's got maybe 4 or 5 years on this new signing. So, it's one of those where City will sign him and hope that it comes to fruition. But fruition might be coming to Manchester. It might be moving elsewhere in the City football group. It might be moving elsewhere in the City football group before coming to Manchester City. He is essentially as talented as he is. Still too young, and there's still too much uncertainty to know what is going on or what will happen in the future. So City is signing him because they really like his potential, but we don't know where that potential will lead.
And we saw last year they signed Maximo Peroni and brought him to City straight away. And I think he made one appearance, and now he seems to be doing okay in La Liga at Las Palmas. But he's not. There is a step up, isn't there, from Argentina to City? And I think Alvarez is an outlier in that he's clearly a very good world class player, and it will probably take other players a little bit longer. But is that something to look for? That 3 January windows in a row, City have gone to Argentina and signed a young player and looked more towards the future rather than right now. Is that a sign that the City football group is sort of laying down roots in Argentina and South America and starting to identify top class players?
Yeah, I mean they laid down kind of the foundations and extended their operation in South America a long time ago. Is maybe a sign of that long time paying off in the same way that kind of the academy building or training ground is now kind of coming up to 10 years and it took a while, but the academy for the last 4 or 5 years has produced considerable talent. It's part of the strategy is, you look back to 2008 when City signed Robinho, and it was a big signing, but it was signing a South American from a European club. Sergio Aguero, the same. Like, Sergio Aguero turned out to be amazing player and amazing value, but the whole thinking from City has been, if we can sign these kids and make City the first European stop for them, then it'll be a lot cheaper. They bought Alvarez for 14 million, and what would he be worth now? 80, 100? More than that even. So, City have made 6-7 times their money back on Alvarez, which is a phenomenal investment. And if you've had that success in that market, then maybe you go back again, and maybe City can buy, a young Argentine player for the next 6 January windows for anywhere between 10 and 30 million. And only one of them needs to come off for them to be in credit again, really. But it's not like the others will be write-offs. So, they sort of investing what they see as smart money into talents who can then either have a role to play at City or go on to make them more than they've paid in a very good career elsewhere.
And they've got a very good record of that, haven't they? Even if a player never comes to City, they'll still make a lot of money and put a sell-on clause, and it's sort of funded the money that City have spent themselves in recent years as well. So I get there's always loads of excitement about these sort of exciting young South American players, but the reality is maybe we won't always see them, and it's always weighing up, like, where are they going to fall? Are they going to be the one that sort of breaks the mold and does a Julian Alvarez and comes and plays and scores loads of goals, or are they just going to be another City Football Group player? But it'll be one to watch. And aside from that, we're not really expecting any other incomings. Is that right?
Yeah, it's funny because kind of maybe 4 weeks ago, or maybe as late as 4 weeks ago, it was kind of felt like the squad was thin and the midfield wasn't really working, and maybe more bodies would be needed with all the injuries that they had. And now kind of they're back, and De Bruyne and Haaland and Doku are coming back, and things suddenly look all rosy again. I think, City won the treble last season with a squad of a similar size, but nobody got injured at, a key time. I think they lost Ake for a few months towards the back end of the season, but Akanji covered really well, and there was Walker as well. So, to go into the Champions League final with a fully fit squad to choose from was an exceptional achievement, and was also a bit of luck, and you need a bit of luck if you're going to have everything make everything go your way. So I think it's one of those where there's every chance that City get a few injuries in the second half of the season, and it costs them, or is costly to them in their pursuit of trophies. But the trade-off is Guardiola would still always want that and have a smaller squad than have a bigger squad and have to disappoint more people every week.
And we've just talked about Gomez and Phillips not being able to get in this small squad. So if you added more players to that, it'd be more disappointment. I think that's a good place to end part one, because when we come back, we'll talk about the return of those injured players and what it could mean going forward and for the FA Cup game against Huddersfield. Hello, welcome back to the Talking City podcast. Very good news this week. Kevin De Bruyne is back. He was back against Sheffield United, but didn't make the pitch. We have seen this week that Doku and Haaland are back in training. Whether they play against Huddersfield remains to be seen. Guardiola, I think, with Doku especially, is going to just wait and see and manage those injuries. And do you bring back a player ahead of schedule for a FA Cup game against a team at the bottom of the Championship? Probably not, but also it's an opportunity maybe to ease them back in. Instead of talking about will they play, Si, we were talking, myself and Tyrone, on Wednesday. How are City going to sort of line up, do you reckon, when De Bruyne and Haaland are back in? Because you would assume, and we both did when we were talking about this, that Haaland and De Bruyne will walk back into their favoured positions at 9 and 10. In that same position, you've got Foden and Alvarez playing very well at the moment. How would you, if you were Pep Guardiola, manage that situation and keep Foden and Alvarez in the form that they're playing, but also accepting that they're probably not going to be able to play in their preferred position?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, but when Alvarez signed for City, when he came to City, he knew that Erling Haaland was there. And he knew that if Erling Haaland was fit, there was a very good chance that he wouldn't start in his favoured position. So that is pretty simple. Erling Haaland is fit. Erling Haaland returns to the striker's role as the number 9. De Bruyne, it's a bit more complicated, and Alvarez having replaced De Bruyne means that he's in that equation. We haven't really seen anything of Alvarez out wide since he came. I think there was a bit of sort of talk when he first arrived that he could play on the right wing maybe, but he just hasn't. Pep's preferred him in the middle. So maybe if you're talking Alvarez v Foden, then Alvarez stays in the middle because Foden is kind of more versatile, and Foden can push out wide. But I think a lot of people are very keen to see Phil Foden and Kevin De Bruyne in the middle. And there's a chance that it's too aggressive or too sort of fast, basically, for City to retain their control of the ball and know their tempo for going through the game. But I think Foden and De Bruyne with Grealish and Bernardo Silva out wide, and Bernardo kind of dropping in back alongside Rodri when needed, might be able to provide the cover that gets on top of kind of Foden learning more of what the role entails. Foden has probably been at his best in the De Bruyne role in recent weeks with Alvarez up front, but he's probably still a better option as a kind of number 8 than Alvarez is at the minute with the form that he's in, and he's been playing it all, most of the season. So I think if this season has kind of taught us anything, it's kind of not to get too bogged down in what we haven't seen before, in the sense of, Foden and De Bruyne on paper seems like too attacking to be in the middle. But so does Foden and Alvarez, really. And City have played that midfield for most of the year, and they're in third place, 5 off top spot with all the issues that they've had. So Foden and De Bruyne are 2 of the best players in the league. Put them together, it's a bit of Sven-Goran Eriksson, just slap all your best players in the team. But I think that Foden and De Bruyne is a midfield pairing that a lot of people want to see and really want to see given the chance to make it work. And And that isn't to say that Alvarez won't play a lot of games, because he will, but also he's already played a lot of games. He's played a lot more games than he did last year, starting a lot more games. So if he were to, play fewer games now that Erling Haaland is fully fit and De Bruyne is fully fit, then I don't think he would I don't think he could say that he hadn't seen it coming. And if he wants to get himself into better form than Foden or Silva or Grealish or Doku, then he's still got every right to do that. But he's probably more limited than Foden because he's not kind of seen as a player that can play on the wing.
It's interesting because myself and Tyrone had this exact conversation, but maybe we all came to different solutions. And you've mentioned probably a different way of looking at it as well, in that Foden and De Bruyne in the centre. I was saying, well, you can shift De Bruyne out wide, Foden out wide, and have him coming in as that second number 10. But maybe against the bigger teams, you can't rely on Kyle Walker to give you that width. And there are lots of options, but every single option seems to rely on Alvarez dropping out as well. And as you say, he's played a lot of football. He's probably not had a real break more than 2 or 3 weeks since January 2022 when he signed for City and spent the rest of the season at River Plate. So if his role for the rest of the season is to come on and ease the pressure on Erling Haaland, you don't have to play Haaland for 90 minutes every week, because you've got a very good player who can come on and score that third or fourth goal to kill off the game as well. I think that might be his sort of position, because I don't think he's getting into that number 10 position ahead of De Bruyne when he returns, and probably even Foden, given the way that Foden's played in the last 4 or 5 games. So it's going to be a tricky one, and I think there's too many players for the positions to keep everyone happy. So it might be Alvarez that drops out, but they probably have a chance, you would expect, against Huddersfield to continue for one last game, Alvarez up top and Foden as number 10, because I can't see De Bruyne starting. I think Pep didn't want to play him at all against Sheffield United, and he warmed up for 20 minutes and raised the roof at the Etihad. But Pep said after the game he was never ever going to bring him on. He just wanted to give him that feeling of a matchday squad again. You can see him taking a similar approach with Haaland and probably Doku as well, if Doku's fit enough. Do you think, you mentioned earlier, you think it's going to be a strong squad against Huddersfield? Do you think it's a sort of one last dance for Foden and Alvarez?
I mean, the thing is as well, like you mentioned, De Bruyne not being fit to come on against Sheffield United. And we how many times this season have we talked about how John Stones' return will impact the team? And then he's come back for 1, 2, 3 games and been injured again. It would be lovely if Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland and Jeremy Doku stayed fit for the rest of the season. It would give Guardiola welcome headaches every week. But if you're someone like Alvarez as well, you know that you're one injury away from being almost guaranteed starter in the team. And Haaland has had an exceptional injury record in his first year at City. Not quite as good this year, and there's no guarantees that he will play every game of the season unscathed from now until June. Same with De Bruyne, 2 big injuries, doing the same thing that happened to him in June and then August. So it's great that these players are back. There are absolutely zero guarantees that they will stay back, as we've seen with John Stones. So I think City's calendar in January means that Guardiola will kind of, the way he is, he'll need to go strong against Huddersfield, because this is the only game between now and playing Newcastle away next Saturday at St James's Park, which is a really big game in the title race. Everyone going to St James's Park has been big. Liverpool going there, going a man down, 2 late goals to win the game. Arsenal, all that controversy, losing 1-0. St James's Park is really tough to go to. City found that out last year again when they ended up coming back from 3-1 down to draw 3-3. So Kevin De Bruyne, we know, needs minutes, needs rhythm, needs game time. If Guardiola wants to play him at Newcastle, he can't just rely on kind of training sessions, really. He's got to give him some game time. Haaland really could do with minutes and game time before Newcastle. So the question is, do you start him and give him 60 and take him off, or take him off at half time, or do you bring him off the bench? But I don't think there's. I mean, it will depend on exactly how fit they are, but I feel like Guardiola has to be thinking about giving considerable minutes to De Bruyne and Haaland against Huddersfield if he wants them to have any kind of impact against Newcastle, which he will.
I think is this game as well. Yes, they have to go strong for the momentum that will go up to Newcastle, and they've already lost at Newcastle this season, even though it was a much changed side. But I think you can also strike a strong argument to give players like Kovacic and Nunes and Oscar Bob a start, and if possible 90 minutes, just to show what they've learned so far at City and what they're going to do. Because I think Nunes over his last few appearances has looked good, sort of carrying the ball forward. He could really do with a goal because he's missed some really presentable chances, but he could do with a 90 minutes to show how far he's come in the first 6 months of his City career. Oscar Bob came off the bench against Sheffield United and looked good, and Guardiola said he wanted to start him but decided against it, and then he plays that sort of pin eye through the needle pass for Foden to get the all-important second goal. And I think it's going to be a mixed match team, and maybe similar to the Red Star away lineup, maybe without Phillips.
That's a call. That's a shout.
I can see Mike Hamilton starting and using De Bruyne and Haaland off the bench, and sort of playing Kovacic, Nunes in midfield, Foden, Alvarez up top. I don't think that's a crazy shout at all.
No, it is not. But when you talk about those things like giving Oscar Bob 90 minutes, who would that benefit? Oscar Bob. Does it benefit City beating Newcastle in a week's time? Probably not. Giving Nunes 90 minutes, who does that benefit? Well, Nunes mostly. Like I could see it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Pep played his strongest team from the start against Huddersfield as like, this is the best way that we are going to beat Newcastle next week, because the City will want to win the FA Cup again, but the Premier League still takes priority, and especially because it's four Premier Leagues in a row is sort of running through that dressing room, and that is the big target. So I'd be very surprised to see Hamilton start, for instance, because I just think if it's a case of Alvarez and Haaland, then, and maybe bringing Doku back as well, then Pep is going to want to go strong to make to keep them gunning for Newcastle.
I'll give you Hamilton, but I would say that if you rest in, say, Bernardo and Grealish, for example, and Rodri, you know what you're going to get from those players, and a rest could do them good after a lot of games where they've had to come in.
They just had a week's rest.
Players. Give them more.
That's
they've played a lot of football. Pep always tells us how many games they're playing, and I think But that's the thing. Rodri especially is one who plays a lot of football.
If Huddersfield was coming 3 days after Sheffield United, then I think we'd have far more chance of seeing Bob and Hamilton and those kind of players. But because they've just had a week off and have another full week before they play Newcastle, I think that shifts the goalpost slightly. And maybe if they win and play another Championship team in the next round, then there's maybe more chance of more changes. But I just feel with the way the calendar with what the calendar has thrown up, then I could completely see Rodri starting.
See, every game we do our sort of predicted teams and how we think City should line up, and a lot of the time it's 90% similar, isn't it? When we go for the same teams, I can see this one being very different 50. And two completely different lineups, and I mean that sort of shows what dilemma not really a dilemma, but the choices that Guardiola's got, and I suppose it will show where his priorities lie if he goes strong or if he makes a few changes. But I think I would assume we're both in agreement that City will beat Huddersfield comfortably.
I mean, they'll intend to, yeah. It's, that they should beat Huddersfield comfortably, but I suppose you never know in the FA Cup. But everything points towards a comfortable win with Huddersfield. It's usually kind of the teams who are at the top of the lower divisions who do better against City in the FA Cup, because they've got this kind of feeling and confidence, and they're not used to losing, and they've got this identity about them. Whereas, Huddersfield haven't had the best year in the Championship so far, so I don't think they'll be turning up expecting to get anything against City. But it should be. I think it's a sellout. Again, people get weirdly excited about the third round. I know a lad who went a few years ago. City drew Rotherham at home, and he absolutely loves the FA Cup third round because it's a chance to see players that you don't normally see. And he went, and it was 2018, so it was just after they'd beaten Liverpool in that sort of 2-1 game that defined the title, and Pep picked a stupidly strong team, and I think they won 7-0, and this lad I know didn't even stay till the end because his sort of joy at seeing all the potential next generation coming through was just wiped out. Championship teams can't expect to come to the Etihad and get a result, but Guardiola will know that whatever team he picks needs to have that ruthless mentality if they want to be counted in his plans for games going forward.
I suppose that it's nothing. It's in one sense it's you can't really win, but you can lose if someone doesn't perform. Then you could end up losing Pep's trust for a little bit. So there will be stuff to play for. It's, as you said, I enjoyed the third round, even though this is not one of the better ties from a neutral perspective, but it'll be a bigger away following.
What are the better ties, though? There's not
many lower league versus Premier League, but I'm looking forward to Newcastle, Sunderland personally. I know you're looking forward to Wigan.
That is the big giant killing opportunity. Yeah. And I don't think there'll be any. I was going to say any United signs going up in Wigan hospitality suites, but they've given them the biggest stand in the ground, so that's a warm welcome of sorts anyway.
Yeah, we might see an upset. United might win. You never know. We'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us again. Thanks, Si. And we'll be back next week after the FA Cup. We'll see how strong Guardiola did go. See which of us is right with our predictions on the team. Give us a follow, give us a like and subscribe wherever you find us, and come back next week and we'll see if Kalvin Phillips is still here and if City are in the fourth round of the FA Cup. 11%.
Oh no. Makes me feel better about 49. Thanks, Seb.